Okay, we are going to take a look at challenge 5 for the Create with Code and what each of the issues with the given project was and how to fix those in the code and what it then looks like as a completed game here. The first issue was that these buttons here were messy and off center. I am using this plugin and script called UGUI, which can be helpful with if the scaling changes of your game. So this over here might look a little different from what you have, but it's the same principles. If we look at the easy button here, the buttons were in the right place, but it was the text. So it was in the weird spot. So I adjusted these values, just sliding my cursor back and forth until each of those were lined up in their respective boxes. The next issue was here, if we start the game here and I click easy, as soon as you put the cursor over in one of the items, it was deleted. So to change that, you come into your code here, and in your target, this was on mouse something other than down. I'm not remembering what it was, but that needs to be changed to on mouse down. So when you click the mouse button, that's when this runs and it destroys the game object and causes the particle effect. The next issue, number 4, the score here was not the score itself. If we started again, it wasn't a number that was going up every time you did something, and instead it just said score. So that issue again in the code, in the game manager, we come into our update score function here, and this was correct. The score goes up every time you have a score to add, but what was reading out was incorrect. At first it was just this string with score, and there was no space or the addition of the score itself afterwards, so that had to get added to have the score show up. The next issue is that, I'll show you again in the game here. Just go into this. As soon as you lost, there's no button to restart. And let's see here, that issue, don't believe it was in the game manager, it was in the code here. If we find our restart game, it was with this right here in the game over function, and the is game active was not being set to false, I believe was the issue with that one. So after that gets set to false, then or actually it was within the restart button here, and the set active was set to false instead of being set to true. So when the game was over, it continued to be false to showing the restart button. That needs to be true, so it does show the restart button. The next issue, number 6, was that each of the buttons here wasn't changing the difficulty. I've been doing easy, so you can look at the hard mode now, so you can see that they spawn considerably faster. and what was given by Unity, each of them did the same difficulty, which is quite hard difficulty. And if we look at our game manager here, we can see that issue was right here. The spawn rate was divided equal to 5 rather than the difficulty. So you have the same input of the difficulty integer like you did in the normal unit problems, and that difficulty is set in your prefabs. You can look at one of those right here, or it's set in the button, sorry, not the prefabs. If we go out here and look at easy button, we can see that the difficulty is 1, medium 2, and hard 3. I think those were all set correctly if I'm remembering correctly. So that was how that issue was solved. And then the bonus for challenge 5 was that the game can go on forever, and you probably see this time left up in the corner here. So to create that, I just made a duplicate of our score UI element there. So very similar. And then I changed the name of the game object to timer and made the text say time left colon and moved it over to this side of the screen. You could put it wherever you want on here as long as it's not covering something up. And then if we look at what the code is for that timer, you can see that I added this private float for a timer variable. And if we come down here in my start game function, I set the timer to 60, so 60 seconds, 1 minute timer. And if we come down here, we can see my function for the countdown timer. So the timer is being subtracted from time delta time, so the frame times. And then the timer countdown, so that's the TextMesh Pro variable, is equal to the time left plus, I use this math f.round so that the timer becomes an integer, so it goes 60, 59 rather than decimals on the UI of the timer. And then if we come up here, I added an update function back into the game that was taken out in the original so that this gets updated every frame. And if the game is active, if game active is equal to true, then that function of countdown timer runs, so every frame it can count down with time delta time. And then if the timer is less than 0, then the game is over. And it runs the game over function down here and gives you the option to restart, puts the game over text on the screen. So I believe that was all for this challenge, and